Hello, hello, and welcome along to the very first session of our Getting Started with Sensory Play course. My name is Lorna. I'm the occupational therapist with the Sensory Sessions, and it is so good to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. Over the next 5 sessions together, I'm going to talk you through lots of activities to do with sensory play, baby brains, development, all about your little one's senses, how to make sure that you're not overstimulating them. We're going to talk about motor skills, and we're going to talk about some of my favorite toys and resources as well. So really, really good to have you here, and I hope that we can kind of get stuck in to our very, very first session together. So today we are going to talk all about baby brains. We're going to talk all about our 8 senses, all about development, and why sensory play is so, so important for our little ones. So let me please share my screen with you, and I will share with you my slides all about sensory development and play. So this is us from the start here. So we're talking all about sensory development. We're talking all about play. And we are going to talk, first of all, about kind of baby brains. So we know from loads and loads of evidence that baby brains are pretty much built, because your babies are building their brains, through 3 main things. The relationships that they have an opportunity of being part of, so having secure relationships with their parents or their caregivers, the experiences they get an opportunity to be part of, and the environments that they get an opportunity to be part of as well. This wee beauty here is called the pyramid of learning. And this is kind of one of our big pieces of evidence about why sensory play and sensory development is so important for our little ones. We're all born at the bottom with our central nervous system. So that's the very, very base of our pyramid. And the idea behind this little diagram is that by the age of 5, our little ones will have developed all of these skills in order to be able to sit down and do some academic learning. So when we are ready to kind of play and pay attention, in our school primary 1 environments, it's at the age of 5 within the UK. We've developed all these skills that kind of enable us to do that. Now you'll notice at the very bottom of this pyramid is sensory systems. Our sensory systems is the basis of how we engage with our environment. It is the basis of how we kind of learn what is going on around us. So that's why when you have a baby, the term sensory is so kind of a buzzword, because everybody talks about sensory play, sensory systems, sensory development. And it's because it's really at the base of this pyramid, really important for our babies to understand, for them to nail, for them really to kind of engage with before they can kind of build lots and lots of skills on top of it. On top of our sensory systems, we've got our sensory motor development, so being able to kind of do our own motor planning, knowing where our body is in space, awareness that we have 2 sides to our bodies. Lots of our perception motor development, so that's things like our hand-eye coordination, our posture development, being able to control those small muscles in the back of our eyes. And at the top there, we have cognition and intellect, and we get towards the top of that pyramid where we hope to be by the end of 5. So that's why sensory systems and sensory play is so important. It's kind of the basis of that pyramid about how we engage with our babies and how we engage within our environment. So let me please talk you through our sensory systems. We have 8 sensory systems that are continually communicating with our brains about how we are doing at any particular time. There's the 5 senses that you know about, and there's 3 body senses as well. So I'm going to talk you through all 8 of these senses just now. So vision is the first one. It's our little pink puzzle piece there. And the idea behind the puzzle pieces is that we are collating all of this information. All these pieces of the puzzle are coming together to help us understand our world and understand our environment. So vision is the very first one. Vision is our baby's least developed sense at birth. It has no kind of practice before our little ones are born. The environment within the womb is pretty much the same day in, day out. So it's least developed sense of birth. And it's fully developed by the age of 2. So we have loads of opportunities to really support and help our little ones with their visual development. When our babies are born, they can pretty much see from the crook of our elbow right to our nose. That is where their visual field is. That's what they can see in focus. And over time, that visual field increases in size. They're able to take in lots of different information from their environment as well. Initially, our babies see in light and shade, so their eyes have the capacity to see in colour, their brains just don't yet have the capacity to process it. So lots and lots of light and shade is really, really interesting. And that's why you'll often get your baby kind of looking at lights or kind of shadows and things, because light and shade is particularly interesting for them. About 3-4 months of age, their color scheme starts to develop, and it starts to come through with colors like reds and oranges and yellows, so the very beginning of that color spectrum. And over kind of the course of 2 years, they're able to kind of see all of the colors. They'll be able to judge distances. They'll be able to see things in focus that come towards them and go away from them as well. So really quite important skills that we have an opportunity to practice with our little ones over the first 2 years of their lives. And some of our play sessions, I'm going to teach you some of those visual development activities. Vestibular is our next sense down, and that's one of our body senses, so our sense of balance. It gives that information from our ear that tells our body about kind of which way is up. So loads of kind of balance games, lots of rocking, lots of opportunities to tilt our babies is really, really helpful and really, really good for their balance system. One of our foundation senses, we need a good sense of balance in order to be able to engage with our environment. Foundation senses were those couple of senses at the bottom of that pyramid that our babies kind of need to nail first. Another foundation sense is the next one along, that's proprioception. Proprioception is knowing where your body is in space. So we all have muscles, spindles in our muscles and Golgi tendon organs in our joints, which are continually communicating with our brain about where our body is positioned at any particular time. For example, all of you will know where your legs and your toes are without actually looking for it, because these signals are firing to your brain that kind of give you an idea of your body position. Now, our babies have all these. They have their spindles, they have their tendon organs, but they don't yet have a really good impression of what their body looks like, where things are positioned, where their feet are, where their hands are. So doing regular massage type activities with our little ones is really, really helpful for this. I'm going to teach you a massage activity in the very first play session that we have together that will really, really help you with this one as well. So lots of information about where our body is in space. Taste is our next one down, and up to 6 months of age, our babies are getting one of two tastes pretty much. They're getting breast milk or bottle milk. And if they're consuming breast milk, they're consuming different tastes that the mother's probably, has consumed, and the breast milk tastes slightly different. If it's bottle milk, it's the same kind of taste all the time. But interestingly, it's not really either one of these factors that make a very, very big difference to weaning, of whether they've had like experience of taste. It's more to do with textures and touch, and we're going to come on to our sense of touch in a little while. Hearing is our next one along, and hearing is our baby's most developed sense at birth. So vision is our least, hearing is our most developed sense at birth. So that's why they can test your baby's hearing from a very, very young age, from a couple of hours old, popping those little earphones on to check and see how their hearing is going. So we can't make their sense of hearing any better, but what we can do is expose them to lots of different noises and lots of directional noise as well. So giving them lots and lots of noise within their environment that really kind of helps them work out where noises are coming from. We're going to do a little bit of that in our play sessions together as well. Interoception is how your body is doing at any particular time. So are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Do you need the toilet? And all this information is going straight to our babies' brains about how they are managing and how they're reacting at any particular time. Now, in our babies, it's a super efficiently working system, because either our babies are absolutely fine and the world is okay, or they're starving. People often say to us that my baby was absolutely fine a few minutes ago. What have I done wrong? And the answer is that you've done nothing wrong. That system has started to fire that tells the baby that they're hungry. It's perceiving it as an emergency, and that will continue to fire until the baby's kind of emergency is dealt with. And that's why you can never really calm a starving baby. Over time, at the moment, kind of Tickety Boo and starving are absolutely next door neighbours. But over time, you will notice that these kind of separate a little bit apart, and you'll get some warning before your little one kind of, they'll give you lots of indications that they're about to get hungry. So over time, you will kind of notice that those kind of split up. But at this stage, and for our very, very tiny babies, that system fires. It can be totally unpredictable in its nature, and you just really need to address the problem when it happens. Our next session along is smell. Our next puzzle piece along is smell. And smell is really interesting, because smell is the only sense that was processed by the emotional part of our brain before it is processed by the sensory part of our brain. And that's why we link smells and emotions so close together. So things like the smell of your partner, the smell of your favorite food, the smell of your first school will all bring back emotions and bring back kind of emotional experiences for you. In our babies, it's exactly the same. The smell that you have, your baby is able to identify, and it brings back emotions for your little one as well. So the feeling of feeling safe, feeling secure happens through that. We would never do kind of a whole session that involved smell, because smell is super overpowering to our little ones. And the idea is that if we're trying to keep our little ones calm, that we keep the smells of our environment pretty regular at the moment. So I wouldn't suggest that you start burning candles or burning incense if it's not something that you normally do. Try and keep smells within your environment quite constant to try and keep your little one calm. But we can introduce some smells during play. So if you are doing anything that involves like a little bit of herb or a little bit of fruit, or you can let your little one experience the smell of it during a play, but not to do an entire session that involves around smell. It's really quite overwhelming for your little one. And the last one down is our sense of touch. So we have touch receptors all over our body. not just on our hands. And we need to give our little ones lots of opportunities to feel and touch as many different things within the environment as we can. Our touch sensation is really, really important. Our brain is kind of feeding off all this other information as we kind of experience touch. And our children now are experiencing a lot less touch. There's lots of research studies about kind of children now are experiencing a lot less different textures than we experienced as children, because they're much more kind of technology based, and we're much more plastic society. We're less likely to be running up and down the streets outside playing with our friends and climbing trees. So our brains aren't coping with as many different textures. And as a result of that, we have a bit of a population of children who are only eating particular foods or only wearing particular clothes because their brains haven't really learned how to cope with processing lots and lots of different textures. So sense of touch is super important. We are going to go over that one in our sessions as well and give our little ones lots of opportunities to feel and touch as many different things as they can. So these 8 senses are continually communicating with our brains about how we are doing at any particular time. As adults, we are able to take this information super quick, process it all together, and make a judgment about how we're managing within our environment. It's called sensory integration. We're integrating all that information from our senses. In our babies, all of these senses are firing separately. So they're giving our little ones lots of information, all separately, about how they are managing at any particular time. And over time, they'll be able to take that information together and judge how they are doing within their environment. So let's talk a little bit about baby brains. And our babies are kind of building their brains. They're putting all these brain connections together. And the idea behind it is that we are creating pathways in our babies' brains that create all these networks that kind of spread out. We're creating all these neural pathways in our little ones' brains. So let's talk through brains. This here is a brain cell. Your baby is born with billions of them. They're born with the most amount of brain cells that they will ever have in their life. And the dendrite on one side, that's the big spidery kind of part, connects with the axon terminal in another to create a cell pathway. So cells kind of link together, create pathways in your little one's brains. And when these cells have come together, a signal fires along that new pathway. And the first time that that pathway is created and that signal fires, it's really, really slow. So that signal goes along really, really slowly. Over time and through lots of repetition, when that signal is starting to fire along, it gets a little bit quicker. And the more we do something, the quicker that signal fires. The easiest way I can always think to describe it is if you have ever learned to drive. The first time you sit in the car, you have to think of everything. You think about your hands, your feet, where you're looking, what all these instruments are doing, what everybody around you is doing. But the more we do it, the more practice we come, the more repetition we do of that activity, the more cells are coming together, the quicker that signal is going along that pathway, until you can get yourself quite successfully from A to B without actually really thinking about what you're doing. Those signals are firing so quickly along pathways. So repetition, repeating activities, bringing kind of things together is amazing for baby brain development. And here is a little slide that shows kind of brain scans of little ones at different kind of ages and stages. And our one on our far side there that says newborn is kind of the start of our baby's brain connections coming together. And between newborn and 1 month, you can see really on that slide how different those brain connections are. So how many brain connections have come together, how busy that little baby's brain has been. Between 1 month and 9 months, it's staggering how busy our babies' brains have been, how many connections they're making. Some of those pathways are already getting a little bit darker as we're building all those nice neural pathways in our brains. And between 2 months and 9 months and 2 years, it's phenomenal how busy our babies' brains have been, how many pathways have been created. And if you do this, I sometimes do this workshop in person, and we cut out the newborn slide and the 2-year slide so we can actually have a really good comparison of kind of how our babies' brains are doing. So between newborn and 2 years, it's a phenomenal change in the structure of our babies' brains. And then between 2 years and adults, you'll notice there's lots of different networks in there, but also lots of really, really dark networks of patterns of behaviors or activities that we are doing really, really often. So let's talk a little bit about our brains. Our brains are made up of lobes, and each lobe kind of has a little bit of a different job here. Now, this is part of a printable. The printable is going to be on your course page as well, so that you can take in a lot more information about it as well. And what we've done here is we've pulled out the sensory and the motor skills information that is happening and the processing that's happening in each of these areas of your little one's brains. Now, your brain is way, way more complicated than we've given it credit for here, but this is just to give you an idea of kind of how their sensory systems and how their motor skills are being developed and how these patterns are happening between their different areas of their brain. So in the purple area there, that is our frontal lobe. It is responsible for loads of our motor skills, lots of our reasoning, our problem solving. It helps us regulate in our emotions and express our language. The pink area just behind it is our parietal lobe. It is responsible for loads and loads of our sensory processing goes on there. So taste, touch, temperature, smell, all kinds that happens in that little pink area. The occipital lobe is our purple area at the back there. Now, it's responsible for loads of our visual processing skills. So all our vision work happens in there, all our recognition and our discrimination skills happens in that purple area. And the grey area just below it is the cerebellum. Now, it's responsible for two of our foundation senses. So our sense of knowing where our body is in space and our sense of knowing which way is up. So lots of our kind of balance coordination activities happen in that area as well. And our last one is our temporal lobe. And lots of our speech and our hearing, our auditory processing, our memory skills, our short-term memory and our long-term memory, our behavior and emotions are happening within that purple area as well. So the idea behind sensory play and brain development is that we are giving our little ones a really balanced approach, and all of those senses, all those 8 senses that are coming together, we're giving them a really balanced approach. So we are using as many of those senses as we can, while not overusing, so overstimulating any of them. But we're also using each area of our baby's brain. So we're connecting all these pathways and all of these networks. So we are creating a really, really networked brain, and we're giving our little ones lots of opportunities to do that. So hopefully over the last kind of 20 minutes or so, I have explained to you kind of why repetition is amazing for baby brain development. So those brain cells are coming together to form pathways. As they come together, a signal fires along them really, really slowly. The more we do something, the more we repeat an activity, the faster that signal gets. So never be scared to read the same book, do a similar activity, kind of play with your little one in the same sort of way, because that repetition pattern is brilliant for making those connections in our brain stronger. Have we think about the foundation senses? So they were the 3 senses at the bottom of that pyramid. So that's knowing where our body is in space. That's our sense of touch, and that's our sense of balance. And we always make sure that we incorporate all 3 of those in our play sessions. I want you to think about positioning. And on our 4th session together, we're going to talk lots and lots about motor skills. But just to highlight it here, that tummy time is super, super important for our little ones. It's how they get lots and lots of their motor skills. It's how they build lots and lots of their strength. And parents will also often say to us, who come along to our sessions, that their little ones now have good head, neck and shoulder control, so we've stopped tummy time because we don't need to do it anymore. But tummy time is about way, way more than just heads, necks and shoulders, because as our little ones are lying on their fronts and bringing their heads up, they're not just doing head, necks and shoulders. They're doing shoulders, they're doing wrists, they're doing elbows, they're doing fingers, they're doing hands, and they're pushing themselves up. They're also starting to engage feet and working on their strength of their hips, their legs, their toes, their knees, their feet, and starting to kind of get all that foot strength as well. It's how we get quite a lot of our core strength and how we lose some of those reflexes that we're born with. We're in a climate at the moment where we have the Back to Sleep campaign, so babies are generally put on their backs to sleep. It's phenomenal. It's amazing for kind of reducing cot deaths and keeping little ones safe and well. But as a result of it, our babies are spending a lot less time on their tummies than they ever did. And we really notice about what is happening with their motor skills as a result of it. We have little ones who don't have as good fine motor skills because they've never had to push up. We have little ones who've never kind of crawled as well. So giving them lots of opportunity, lots of experience, and lots of time on their tummies is really important. We'll go into it in quite a bit of depth on our 4th session when we talk lots about motor skills. But just at this point, to know that flipping our little ones onto their fronts, moving those little hands forward, giving them lots of opportunities to strengthen their body throughout their day is really, really important. But I also want you to be super, super baby-led. Tummy time tends not to be enjoyed very much by our little ones because it is really hard work. They're lifting the heaviest part of their body up against gravity. So I want you to be super baby-led. As soon as your little one tells you that they've had enough, you lift them up, you give them a big cuddle, you try them down later that day when they're awake and alert again. Do it as often as you can. Never let it become a big deal. Never let your little one get upset or cry during tummy time. Just lift them up, give them a big cuddle, try them later on in the day. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that in our motor skills one as well. Vision is our baby's least developed sense at birth. So being very conscious of that, being very aware of that, being very kind of conscious that we don't overstimulate our vision, but thinking about those kind of high contrast things, and lots of toys and things that are kind of black and white or high contrast being super helpful for helping our little ones develop their vision. We're going to be talking a little bit about kind of single color toys and contrast toys in one of our future sessions together when we talk about play as well. And the two types of play that we're going to do this week, the two types of play that are kind of recommended for this age, is led play, where we are leading activities with our little ones. We're talking them through things. We have kind of toys that we're using in a particular way to lead our little ones through. And exploratory play, which is pretty much where we put a little blanket out, we put a couple of toys down, and we let our little ones really spend some time engaging with them. Both of those sets of kind of play we are going to do over our coming days together as well. So hopefully over the last wee while, I have explained to you all about baby brains. I have explained to you all about our 8 senses that give you a really good idea about how your baby's brains are developing. We are going to do our play session on day, we've got 3 play sessions, one on our first day, one on our third day, and one on our fourth day together. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about play and activities that we can do that help our baby's brains and help their sensory development as well. I really, really want you to ask questions though. And in our introductory video there, you will have had lots of opportunities to kind of engage with our resources in order that we can kind of get some questions as well. So do use them in the Facebook group. Do send us emails if we can help support you in any way. And during these live sessions where we're doing our play, we'll make sure that we spend a bit of time answering questions as well. So I hope that has really helped. I hope that's given you an idea about what's happening with your baby's brain. And I can't wait to welcome you along to our second session. Thank you so much for your time. Take care.